It's been just over 2 years since I made that big overview video for Ashes of Creation. 2.6 million views, the hype train's still rolling, and 2 years worth of development updates later, I decided to make an updated version of that video. So grab a cup of tea, sit back and relax whilst I explain to you why Ashes of Creation is still, by far, the most exciting upcoming MMORPG. This video has no sponsor and took a solid 40 hours of writing, recording and editing. So if you'd like to support my work and plan on playing Ashes when it releases, then click my referral link in the description below or use my code to create an account. Ashes of Creation is the biggest upcoming Western MMORPG in terms of scope, hoping to provide fans of PvP, PVE and roleplay content an ever-changing virtual world in which the progression of each server is completely different and dependent on the actions of the player base. Ashes started development back in 2016 in Unreal Engine 4, however at the end of 2021 upgraded its engine to Unreal 5 to make use of the latest advancements in gaming tech such as Lumen, and a more efficient development pipeline. In terms of funding, the game was successfully kickstarted in 2017, however the vast majority of the game's funding comes from creative director Steven Sharif, a successful entrepreneur who, like most of us, has been a lifelong MMO fan that was unhappy with the current state of the MMO genre. Ashes of Creation is fully funded to completion, and despite offering paid access to alpha and beta tests, is not reliant on these funds to finish development. This game will have zero pay to win, a cosmetic only cash shop with no convenience items, and a $15 per month subscription fee business model with no box cost. MMOs can usually be put into three categories: sandbox, theme park or Sandpark. An example of a theme park MMO would be Final Fantasy XIV or WoW, an on-rails story-driven experience with a lot of scripted instanced content, heavily reliant on developers constantly adding new raids, dungeons and gear treadmill content to keep people playing. An example of a sandbox MMO would be EVE Online, a game that's almost entirely player driven. You need to create your own goals and find your place within a player driven ecosystem, typically joining alliances or guilds to take over land and control resources. These games are less reliant on developer created content as the interaction between players is the content and it's different every time. A Sandpark MMO is basically a hybrid of theme park and sandbox. There's a lot of player driven content, however there's also developer created scripted encounters such as raids and dungeons. This is the category of MMO that Ashes of Creation falls into, and personally it's my favourite type of MMORPG. So what makes Ashes of Creation unique? How does this game innovate to push the genre forwards? And why should you be excited for this MMO over all the others that have released and failed over the past 15 years? Ashes of Creation's biggest innovation, in my opinion, is its node system, and it's this system that ensures that no two servers will ever be the same. Basically, when the game launches, the world will be empty, however over time, camps, villages, towns, cities and sprawling metropolises will pop up in locations where players earn XP from killing mobs, gathering or doing quests. There'll be over 100 nodes scattered throughout the world at launch, and each node will have a different layout and appearance depending on the race that contributed the most XP to it, as well as the buildings the mayor decides to place. So if, for example, orc players contributed the most XP to a node, the node will then have an orcish aesthetic. The same is true for every other race in the game, and these racial aesthetic changes are applied to the node every time it's leveled up. So a town could start with an elven aesthetic, but if dwarves contributed the most XP to progress it to the city stage, it would then change to a dwarven theme. So what happens when every node in the game is leveled to max? Well, that can't happen. Building up one node to a city, for example, will lock out adjacent nodes from reaching the same level, which in turn also locks or unlocks various quests, dungeons or bosses. Players will have to initiate node sieges to de-level a node if they wish to progress adjacent nodes. Nodes come in 4 different node types: militaristic, scientific, divine or economic, each of which have their own special perks, adding further variety into this system. Like I said, the node system is designed so that no two servers will be the same. If you take a break from the game for a few months, you could come back and the location of all major cities is completely different. Different taxes, buildings, different mayors voted to be in charge of the node, and different node racial aesthetics. No other MMORPG has ever done this before, and we've already seen this system working up to the village stage in last year's Alpha 1 test. On top of the node system also lies the node political system, where players compete to become the node's mayor. The process of how this is done varies depending on the node type. Scientific node mayors are voted for democratically, militaristic node mayors are chosen by victory in a last man standing tournament, economic node leadership is sold to the highest bidder, and divine node governance is given to the player that completed the most node quests. Once a mayor has been decided, they can set the tax rate and decide which building projects to pursue. The only way to remove a mayor is by destroying the node via the node siege mechanic. Bad mayors will exist, yes, they will cause drama, and this is all by design, as any virtual world has good guys and bad guys. Some nodes will naturally die out and de-level due to an inactive mayor, others will need to be taken out by force, some mayors might tax their citizens so hard that everyone leaves and there's no money for upkeep. This is all intended with the design principle of actions having consequences. The final thing worth mentioning about nodes is the citizenship and player housing systems tied to it. Once a node reaches village stage or higher, player housing then becomes available. There's 3 types of player housing: real space in node housing, real space freeholds, which are basically plots of land within the node's zone of influence, and instanced node apartments. Players who have invested into any of these types of player housing can then register to become citizens of the node, which brings with it various benefits listed on screen. You can only become a citizen of one node at a time per account, so this is an important decision designed to make players want to invest in and defend their node. Nodes are not owned by guilds, and the more people that register for citizenship at a single node, the more expensive it becomes for future citizens to join. You will lose citizenship if your node is destroyed in a node siege. In addition, you will also lose your player housing and a portion of the resources stored in your node's warehouse, so it's really in your best interests to defend and invest in the node that you're a citizen of. Another completely unique thing Ashes of Creation is bringing to the MMO genre that has never been done before is its season technology. This was recently shown off and working in a dev livestream, but basically every 1 or 2 weeks, certain biomes will change seasons from spring, summer, autumn or winter. In doing so, the appearance of monsters might change, there will be buffs or debuffs to your character, dungeon entrances or mountain passes might become frozen over or inaccessible, some gatherable resources might become unavailable during certain seasons, which might have an economic impact, and there will also be different weather effects depending on the season. This, coupled with the ever-changing node system, gives Ashes of Creation the potential to be the MMORPG that has the most interesting, immersive and evolving world we've seen out of any MMO to date. You leave the game, log in a few weeks later, the node has changed, the season has changed, new events and quests have spawned. It'll feel like you've zoned into a completely new location. On the PVE side of things, something I find especially interesting with Ashes of Creation is how content such as dungeons and raids will have adaptive difficulty based on the performance of the party against previous bosses. So let's say your group absolutely steamrolls the first boss in a dungeon or raid. The next boss will then scale to be more difficult, unlocking additional mechanics and as a result drop better loot. In addition, node development also has a big impact on PVE difficulty and content availability too. The higher the node level, the higher the level of mobs in the surrounding area. Perhaps there's a dungeon with 5 bosses inside, however the 4th and 5th boss rooms only become accessible once the node has developed to city or metropolis stage. Additional mechanics and higher loot potential could also be locked behind the leveling of nodes. Obviously this will take a lot of balancing, but I like the direction they're going in when it comes to PVE difficulty. If they get it right, dungeons and raids could become infinitely difficult based on performance, which could also open up the potential for competitive PvE leaderboards if there was some kind of performance rating added on top of this system. Although Ashes of Creation won't be the first MMO to introduce a caravan system, shout out to Silk Road Online, it's certainly not a common thing we've seen in any of the other top MMOs in recent years. I think the last MMO to have something like this was Arcade. Storage in Ashes of Creation is not global. Warehouses where you store your items will be local to each node, and gatherable resources for crafting will be more or less plentiful based on biome or region. This means that players will be able to take advantage of localized economies by transporting goods from one region to another based on supply and demand. This is done through the Caravan System. Let's say you're a citizen of a node located in the desert biome. People need a lot of wood for crafting, but it's hard to come by in the desert. You travel to the forest, spend a few hours collecting or buying wood from other players, then you want to transport it back to the desert to sell on for profit or use yourself. You can go to the storage at the forest node and spawn a personal caravan to then transport those goods. In doing so, the area around the caravan will become a moving open world PvP zone, in which players can choose to either attack or defend the caravan. There's incentives for either side. This is a risk versus reward system in which you could potentially lose your stuff if your caravan is successfully raided. The whole existence of the caravan system also opens up the possibility for players to become mercenaries and sell protection services to players wanting to transport their goods for coin, which is also pretty cool. Monster coin events are a multiplayer horde defense activity that can take place at nodes. These events must be triggered by something significant happening in the surrounding area, such as node advancement, the death of a world boss, or constructing a certain building in the node. During a monster coin event, players must choose to either attack or defend. Attackers can use monster coins to transform into a monster and attack key objectives in the node, whilst defenders must defend against the attacking horde of monsters. Monster coin events cannot de-level a node, however they can kill important NPCs or disable buildings at the node for a while if the attackers are successful. Monster coins can be obtained via rare drops in game, and the rewards for this activity are entirely cosmetic. The final point I want to make when it comes to what makes Ashes of Creation so unique is the sheer scope of the game. When you combine all the features and innovations this game will have, it's surely going to be the biggest fantasy MMO ever made to date. 9 different playable races, both with male and female options, 480 square kilometer world size at launch, fully open world game where you can go from one side of the map to the other, no loading screens, dungeons, raids, world bosses, open world PvP with a criminal system, Caravan PVP, castle sieges, node sieges, arenas, duels, guild wars, crafting and artisan system, monster coin events, political system, citizenship, player run shops, taverns with parlor games, top tier character customization, transmog cosmetic collection, 64 different class combinations, 3 forms of player housing, both open world and instanced, achievements, leaderboards, gathering, questing, hybrid combat system, player-driven economy with localized storage, pets, massive guild system with guild halls, both land and water mounts, and 18 different biomes in the world. Every week or two the season changes, which makes zones feel completely different, and if all of that wasn't enough, something I often forget is that the game will have an entire arcade-style naval system where you can sail across the ocean on massive ships and partake in naval PvP and naval trade routes. I've probably forgot to mention a few features in that little ramble, but my point is, this game will be bloody huge. So huge that I can totally understand why people have been skeptical about the project since the inception. But at this point, we have seen most of these things that I've mentioned at some point in development live streams in recent years, so it's definitely all stuff that's being worked on. The only content we haven't seen much of at this point is the naval aspect of the game, although recently we've been shown some 3D models for the ships, as well as a giant sea monster boss, so hopefully we'll see more of that soon. At this point you're probably saying, Wow, Peon, all of that sounds great, but I don't want to wait until 2030 to play this thing. Hasn't the game been in development for years already? Yes, it has. But unfortunately, my MMO hungry friends, this is a genre where games take a long ass time to make. ESO, Lost Ark and Arcade, for example, all took over 7 years of development until launch. Final Fantasy XIV was in development for 9 years before A Realm Reborn released. Right now, Ashes of Creation is about 5.5 years into development, and with it being a particularly ambitious project, I still think we've got a while to wait. That being said, since moving to Unreal Engine 5, their development speed seems to have gone through the roof, with significant progress shown every live stream, so maybe it's closer than we think. So far, I've only explained the unique aspects of Ashes of Creation, the things it's doing to push the genre forward, but the game also has a lot of other features that you're likely familiar with from other MMOs. So next I'm going to break down everything the game has into the following categories: PVE content, PvP content, roleplay content, the world, professions, class and combat system. As this is such a colossal game with so many different aspects to it, it's impossible for me to talk about every feature in depth and answer every question you might have. Thankfully, there's a fantastic resource already available called the Ashes of Creation Wiki that's constantly being updated and has thousands of pages worth of information. Any specific questions you might have, check the wiki and there's a 99% chance you'll get an answer. Shout out to Lex, who's been keeping this up to date over the years. The PVE content in Ashes looks a little bit like this. Content is tailored for group sizes of 40, 16 and 8 player groups. The maximum size of a party is 8 players. Dungeons are designed for these 8 player parties. 20% of dungeon and raid content is instanced, whilst 80% are open world. Raids and dungeons are designed for group sizes of either 16 or 40 players, and raids and dungeons both use the adaptive difficulty system that I spoke about earlier in this video. Ashes of Creation will have many world bosses designed to be contested by large groups of players and guilds. These world bosses will have a chance to drop legendary equipment and a tiny chance to drop eggs that can hatch into non-permanent, limited time flying mounts. Due to how they're designed, world bosses are also likely to attract open world PvP with multiple guilds fighting for the glory of the boss kill and loot. Monster Coin events are another PvE VP event that I spoke about previously. These horde defense style events are likely to spawn following the leveling of a node or a world boss being killed. Quests are another form of PvE content and they come in multiple forms: events, tasks, narrative quests, daily quests, epic and legendary quests, racial quests, class quests and caravan quests. Jumping puzzles will also be another fun aspect of PvE in Ashes of Creation. You'll encounter them whilst questing and exploring dungeons. There was already a few of these present in the game during the Alpha 1 test in 2021. Next, PvP content, and yes, there's a lot of it. First, let's discuss the open world PvP flagging system, otherwise referred to as the corruption system. In most cases, if killed by another player, the only things dropped upon death are gatherable and crafting materials. There's 3 states a player can be in: green, non-combatant, purple, combatant, and red, corrupted. Each player starts out as green unless they attack or fight back with another player, at which point they'll turn purple. Green non-combatant players who don't want to engage in PvP are still incentivized to at least run away or fight back, as being killed as a green player will result in dropping gatherable and crafting mats at twice the rate of if they'd have died whilst purple, aka fighting back. Purple indicates a state of consensual PvP. You're actually rewarded by dropping less gatherable mats on death if you die in this state. If a purple player kills a green player, then they become red, corrupted. Corrupted players are criminals and will face increasing penalties the more green players they kill, such as dampening and even dropping their gear upon death. If you're a green, pure PvE player, you'd have to make someone pretty mad whilst gathering for them to want to turn red on you. If you haven't got any droppable crafting or gathering mats, there's absolutely no benefit for someone to flag and kill you. So don't worry about people standing outside of nodes just spawn killing PvE players. Most of the time it won't be worth it. If that is something you're worried about though, a bounty hunter system will also exist where bounty hunters can hunt down corrupted players for rewards.
The Bounty Hunter!
Node sieges and castle sieges. These are two different things. A node siege is where players band together to destroy a node, resetting its level to allow adjacent nodes to progress to higher stages. The higher the level of the node, the more work is required to fulfill the prerequisites to declare the siege. Any player can declare a node siege, and once declared, a countdown begins, giving players anywhere between 2 to 5 days notice, depending on the level of the node, to prepare for the impending battle. Players cannot transport goods from their warehouse during this time, and many services in the node will also be disabled until the outcome of the siege is decided. Castle sieges are massive, large-scale 250 vs 250 player battles for guilds that occur once per month. There will be a total of 5 castles in the world. Castle sieges will have multiple objectives for both attackers and defenders, and might also include raid bosses that attackers can slay for certain buffs. These battles will include siege weapons such as catapults, trebuchets, cannons and ballistas, and there will be a great deal of prestige and rewards for guilds that manage to own one of the 5 castles in the world. Guilds can declare war on each other via the guild war system. Once a war has been declared, players in those guilds can kill each other without penalties. Guild wars will have victory and surrender conditions, with guild war objectives spawning during the server's prime time. When it comes to battlegrounds, Ashes of Creation will not have traditional MMORPGs where you can queue and are teleported to an instance. However, the game will have a gladiator-style last man standing arena where players can battle to become the mayor of militaristic nodes. Caravan PVP is something I spoke about earlier and will be a big catalyst for PvP in the open world, and the game will have instanced arenas for 1v1, 3v3 and 5v5 player group sizes, as well as the ability for players to duel each other for fun. Role players rejoice because Ashes of Creation certainly hasn't forgotten about you. In fact, quite the opposite. This could be one of the most RP-friendly MMOs ever made. First off, the game will have 9 different playable races, no gender or race-locked classes, each of which have their own architectural influence on the nodes they contribute the most XP to. You've got the Kalar and Veloon humans, the Dunir and Nikua dwarves, the Renkai and Vek orcs, Empyrean and Pyre elves, and the recently revealed Tulnar. Earlier this year, Intrepid revealed to us their top tier character customization suite, which, although at the time wasn't completely finished, was already up there as being one of the most in-depth in the MMO genre, right up there with Black Desert's character creator. But what's a good character creator without a good fashion and transmog system, right? In this game, you'll be able to collect appearances of weapons, armor and accessories and apply it to what you've currently got equipped, similar to WoW's transmog system or Guild Wars 2's wardrobe system. You will also be able to dye your gear. Additionally, those monthly cosmetic packs you've probably heard people complaining about in the past will be one-piece outfits, similar to how it works in Guild Wars 2. You won't be able to mix and match armor components from these full costumes, meaning the most unique transmog combinations won't be something you can just buy from the cosmetic shop. We've already touched on player housing earlier in this video, but to reiterate, they come in 3 types. Instanced apartments within nodes that anyone can gain access to for citizenship, real space in-node housing that level up with the node, and real space freeholds, which are set-size plots of land located within a node's area of influence. You'll be able to decorate your player housing with furniture, craft and process materials at your freehold, and obviously throw kinky ERP parties in your house with other players, which, let's be honest, is 90% of the reason why people RP in MMOs. Situated inside nodes or freeholds, taverns are buildings that act as a social hub for players to relax, roleplay, buy consumables, play music, gain rested XP by renting a room, or partake in parlour games together. It's also possible that proximity voice chat will be enabled inside of taverns, although this will require some testing. When it comes to emotes, Ashes of Creation will have all the standard animations you'd expect in an MMORPG, as well as consensual multiplayer emotes such as dancing and hugging. Additionally, you'll be able to interact with the environment by leaning on walls, sitting down, vaulting over fences, mantling and crouching. As previously mentioned, Ashes of Creation will have a political system where players can compete to become the mayor of the node in numerous ways. From this, good mayors and bad mayors will emerge, which in itself is another aspect of roleplay. And finally, yes, marriage, including same-sex marriages, will be a thing in Ashes of Creation. Marriage will allow player housing permissions to be shared, and a quest might appear related to a marriage ceremony. This system isn't 100% fleshed out as of making this video, but it will be in the game in one form or another. Next, let's discuss the world of Ashes of Creation, starting with server size, which Intrepid are aiming to support 8,000 to 10,000 concurrent players online at one time, 5 times the number of players that New World's servers can currently handle. When it comes to server locations, the most recent info I could find is that they plan on having servers for the following regions: North America, Europe, Asia Pacific and Australia. However, other server regions such as South America are under consideration. Stephen, if you're watching this video, please heavily consider adding Southeast Asia servers. So many people here love MMOs that we have to get wrecked by 150 to 200 ping connecting to Australia. I'm sure the same could be said for South America connecting to NA too. You're making the most highly anticipated MMO globally, and after all these years of development and anticipation, it'd be a big shame if large regions of people couldn't enjoy it to its fullest due to ping and server regions. As previously mentioned, the world in Ashes will be 480 kilometers squared at launch, which includes land and water, with an additional 100 kilometers squared for the Underrealm. The world will be ever changing thanks to the node system and seasons, but I've already gone in depth on those systems at the start of this video, so best not to repeat myself further. When it comes to fast travel and flying mounts, the world of Ashes is designed so that distance and scale matters. Fast travel will be limited to the superpower of a scientific node at Metropolis level, allowing players to teleport to smaller nodes within the Metropolis zone of influence, and a family summon with a long cast time that can be used on up to 8 family members. Flying mounts will be extremely rare and limited in duration, with them being obtained via legendary drop eggs from world bosses, or obtainable to mayors of Metropolis nodes, as well as guild leaders owning one of the 5 castles in-game. Out of 10,000 players per server, there's likely to only be between 10 and 15 players who have access to flying mounts at a time. This game isn't designed around flying. If you ever get to experience it, then it's a great achievement or you've been extremely lucky. For the most part, you'll travel around the world via ground mounts, water mounts, or ships if you wish to traverse the Great Ocean. As I previously mentioned, Ashes will have a fully explorable ocean similar to Arcade. There will be coastal nodes, harbours, naval caravans, treasure hunting, underwater dungeons, naval quests, naval PVP, and multiple different ship sizes ranging from small, medium and large. Similar to Arcade, there will also be giant sea monster world bosses, like the Negalith, which was recently teased and should be present in Alpha 2. Lore and story is definitely something that's present in Ashes of Creation, however it's not one of those MMOs where you're the chosen one, hero of light, center of the universe, god of all things, with NPCs worshipping you upon sight because you followed the same linear story as millions before you. Storytelling will be more based on learning about past events in the lore, self-contained short story quests, and the overarching story of the world's development. This game actually has a ton of lore, with a lot of stuff being kept secret for launch, but you can read more about that stuff on the wiki, as this video is starting to get pretty long as it is. The Artisan class and profession system in Ashes looks something like this. You've got 3 Artisan classes, Gathering, Processing or Crafting, each of which contain various professions. Gathering professions include farming, fishing, herbalism, lumberjacking, mining and taming. Processing professions include animal husbandry and smelting, and crafting professions include alchemy, armorsmithing, blacksmithing, caravan building, carpentry, cooking, jewel crafting, scribes, shipbuilding, siege weapons, and weaponsmithing. A character may only master up to a maximum of 2 professions within one Artisan class. So let's say you choose to be a gatherer. You could max out mining and lumberjacking, but you could not max out mining and alchemy. If you're a crafter, you could choose to max out cooking and jewel crafting, but you could not max out cooking and smelting. To get around this limitation, you may use alts or join guilds and work together to fulfill your crafting needs. The most unique profession in Ashes of Creation has to be animal husbandry, in which you can breed different animals together to create weird and wonderful hybrid mounts, like this wonderful half griffin, half butterfly raccoon monstrosity. Finally, let's discuss what for many people is the most important thing about Ashes of Creation, the combat and class system. Ashes of Creation will have a hybrid combat system similar to Guild Wars 2. In previous videos I couldn't really show you what this combat would look like, but recently they've made substantial progress and shown off some basic melee weapon attacks, and boy does it look a hell of a lot better than the combat the game had in past tests. As this system is in the middle of a full redesign and we haven't even had the chance to see a lot of the redesigned abilities yet, I'm not going to talk too in depth on it, but basically when it's done, expect Guild Wars 2 combat but better. Some abilities need to be targeted whilst others are AoE telegraph and frontal cone attacks. You'll be able to dodge, blink and iframe depending on your class. A lot of effort is going into audio-visual feedback, and as you can see by the damage numbers, they're going with something that looks very vanilla WoW, which I personally love. Keep an eye out for more updates on this system over the next few months, but so far the new design direction is looking very good. When it comes to classes, Ashes of Creation is using a similar system to Arcade, but instead of a possible 220 classes, there's 64 different possible class combos in Ashes. The way this works is you've got 8 primary classes: Bard, Cleric, Fighter, Mage, Ranger, Rogue, Summoner and Tank. You can then choose a secondary class out of the same 8 options to determine your overall class. If your primary class is Fighter and your second class is also Fighter, you'd be a Weapon Master, for example. Mage primary, Summoner secondary would be Warlock. Summoner primary, Mage secondary would be Spellmancer. You get the idea. When it comes to leveling, the level cap at launch will be level 50, and it's intended to take roughly 45 days of playing 4 to 6 hours per day to reach max level. At each level you'll receive various rewards, from skill points to new quest unlocks and other stuff to make leveling feel rewarding. If you've made it this far, congratulations, you've just been absolutely battered with information, and my brain is starting to shut down from the sheer amount of research and writing that's gone into this video. It's been 5 years since my first Ashes of Creation vid back in 2017, and the footage of the game back then compared to now is completely unrecognisable. Intrepid Studios has grown to a team size of over 150 developers, attracting some of the best MMO talent from North America, and since the upgrade to Unreal Engine 5, they've been absolutely pumping out substantial progress with every dev livestream. Some might say that I shouldn't hype this game so much, and it's still just a pipe dream, but honestly I think there's nothing wrong with getting excited for a new MMO, especially in a genre that's been so full of disappointment for so many years. The excitement, anticipation and speculation of a new MMO is almost as fun as playing it at this point, but hey, maybe you could say I'm high on Copium.
What the hell is this? No, what's going on? Sir, there's a massive spike in the Copium levels. What do we do?
Yes, I felt it. It's time. Initiate Operation Hopium.
But that's it for this video, guys. This one took a ton of work to make, so please help me out by leaving a comment, destroying that like button for the algorithm gods, and if you plan on playing Ashes anyway, signing up for the game using my referral code. Let me know your thoughts on Ashes of Creation in the comments below, and have you changed your mind on the project in recent years as more stuff has been shown? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.